Okay. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the weekly FreudenFreude broadcast. Today, at the very end of the year, it's the 28th of December today. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, Claudia. How are you?
Well, guys, I am just recovering from a really nasty case of COVID. So if I'm still gasping for air, that's kind of why. So bear with me today. I'm going to try my very best. But thankfully, I have my fabulous co-host here today to kind of maybe pick up the slack just a little bit.
As always.
Yeah, did you have a good Christmas?
I did. I enjoyed my stay. We went out to the other kingdom. And we just had a great time. It was, you know what, it's always just nice to get away. So that's more than enough.
Yeah, and sometimes it's really interesting how even just one night away from home can really feel like a vacation.
Yes,
And be
exactly.
very refreshing. Good.
How about you?
Well, I was in bed.
That's true.
Yeah, gasping for air, literally. So let's get started maybe on today's topic here. And it is about anxiety and catastrophizing. And I think one of the reasons we selected this topic is because last time we talked about taking stock and looking back and looking forward as we kind of contemplate our resolutions, or maybe have a little bit more quiet time during this time when some people actually have a few days off from work and are able to kind of spend some time thinking about what's going on in their lives. And this anxiety and this aspect of catastrophizing is something that can come up. It can well up during these times. And so we thought that it might be a really interesting topic just to maybe help put certain things into perspective.
That's correct. Most of the times, a lot of people in this time struggle with anxiety, with loneliness. And there's a lot of expectation rising, right? Like what is expected of me, family reunions and all this kind of stuff. And it so kind of creates a little bit of social anxiety. And social anxiety has a lot to do with catastrophizing. That's what, in my personal experience and in other people, I've noticed. What about you, Claudia?
Well, I mean, I come from a very small nuclear family, so I do not have personal experience with being thrown once or twice a year in these huge family get-togethers, and maybe the parents egging you on that you are not married yet, or God knows what nagging goes on. And I think that there's a lot happening during this time. There's also, I think, this aspect of one-upmanship when it comes to gift giving, which for some people can be very stressful. Did I give the right gift? Did I get the right class of gift? Or did I spend enough money? And all these kind of things. I mean, this commercial aspect also brings in the sense of expectation. Is the house pretty enough in terms of decorations? Did I cook enough food, or the right type of food and things like that? So there can be a lot happening aside from our own contemplations that often happen year end in terms of, what did I really accomplish this year? And oh my God, it's already 2023 next year. My goodness, right? So I think that it's just a lot of struggle. And I think that even the fact that it's the darkest days of the year, I mean, the nights are the longest now around winter solstice, so we do not get enough light, and maybe we do not even venture outside a lot. And even the seasonal affective aspect can even influence our state of mind.
That is correct. That is correct.
A lot can be happening here.
There's also, I think, a lot of perfectionism involved, right? It comes hand in hand with one of our episodes, because anxiety comes from the expectation of, like you said, is it good enough? Am I doing right? Is this the right thing? Is this the right decision? Blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, like you said, did I do right or did I do good throughout the year? Can I have anything to show off, you know, for what I've been going through or doing through the entire year? And so when you invite family and when you invite friends over, you always have that thing of putting together the best things that you've gathered throughout, you know, throughout the years, and especially throughout the last year, things that you can talk about, things that you can have a conversation about, of how you've improved yourself, and so on and so on. And speaking of, like you said, it has also to do a lot with the weather. It has to do a lot with the weather. I've been following this lady. She lives very close to one of the highest parts of Alaska. Well, North Pole, I'm sorry. And right now they're experiencing the darkest days in that side of the world, which is 2.5 months. She was talking about vitamin D. They have to constantly have injections of vitamin D and be checking their levels and all this kind of stuff. But really, this is not about weather, people, but it's mostly about, you know, catastrophizing, which comes with, for what I've seen, the social anxiety that I was talking about. And it has to do a lot with the past. It has to do with the experiences you have in the past, not necessarily with that particular person. Could be, but not necessarily. That you've experienced people, like Claudia was saying, where you're wondering, is this gift good enough? Is this what I'm doing or selecting good enough? And you start thinking about all these things that you wish you could do or could have done or should have done and would have done. Again, the coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? And then you start thinking about what could be the worst thing that can happen. And you start thinking about the actual things that could go wrong, right? That the person is not going to like the gift, that the person is going to return it, and all these kind of things. I learned one thing. When I started my journey as a coach, I learned one major thing that I always wanted to do, which is to let go. You cannot control what other people feel and think, even if it's the medallion that they wanted or the purse that they wanted. There's always going to be something. Yeah. There's always going to be some expectation you're not going to meet. And I did that throughout the years. And I think everybody has experienced that. And so I learned to let go. I learned to simply just say, this is what I'm giving you from the bottom of my heart. And that's it. That's all you can control, right?
Yeah. Because even beyond that, irrespective of expectations that are being imposed on you from the outside, what anxiety and catastrophizing are internal states. It's all something that happens in your psyche, in your brain. You absolutely know of cases where you were the one in a tizzy and just anxiety laden and fretting and stressed and things like that, when there was absolutely no pressure on you from the outside. There wasn't. But, it's about our internal speech, our internal expectation, because expectation management is really what this is all about. Expectation management, being real about the context, really being able to put your finger on outcome possibilities and things like that, and then just taking it in stride, because anxiety is something that we can feel in our bodies. Our heart starts racing, our breathing gets shallow, even if you haven't been about having COVID just now. And it is triggered by these thoughts of fear in your brain about things that have potentially absolutely no chance of happening, or haven't happened, or are not as bad as you think. Because catastrophizing is that you take something and turn it into a catastrophe. It gets just blown out of its actual proportions, and it becomes this really big deal. And I think that it's this inner game. The positive thing about this is that because it is your inner state, you can learn to manage it. You do not need other people to change. You do not need outside circumstances to change. What you have to change, or if you're willing, what you should be aiming towards changing, is your view of it, your perspective on it, the way that you judge or not what is happening. And just this taking it in stride and calming down. And we can talk about it all day long. If you get into the state where it's really crazy like that, it's not easy to calm down. We all know this. But it is an inner game, and as such, you can be more masterful in coping with it if you maybe just apply certain simple tips and tricks to maybe get a different perspective on it.
That's correct. And for me, it's always been, and I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again, preparation. You have to be very well aware of the situation that is current. So it's all about experiences currently. That's truly what it is. And if that experience happened to you because you ignored something, because you forgot something, which is really, truly what really happens, when something goes bad is because you either forgot to do something to prevent it, or just missed a detail that you thought, what are the chances, right? And then there's a chance of one chance out of 100. And I've learned that everything I think about, I have to take action, because that's what happens to me. So if I want to prevent something from happening, I have to take action and be prepared. Probably something that a lot of people are probably experiencing, and hopefully my heart goes out to all of you, and I have something to share with. One of the things that happened to me about now 6 years ago, schnauzers suffer from a lot of diseases. One of the horrible diseases that they can suffer and die of.
The dog?
My dog.
Okay.
Yes. He went to the bathroom one night. We saw him reacting different. We saw him behaving different. We call it parking. He would be parking in a corner, and we would laugh and think, oh, that's so funny, and thinking that. Well, it's not that. It's that they're struggling with something internal. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but the thing is that he was acting weird. Then one night, I just decided to go and check, and I saw this blood bath on the grass. It's like, oh my God, what happened here? A cat died, what happened? Then I noticed something in the back of my doggie in his butt, and that was blood. And I immediately linked it. We took him to the doctor, and he didn't live more than 28 hours. That for me was a ding, 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 ding. How can I prevent this to happening to me again because I had another schnauzer. And I thought, every time I have to be taking their temperature, I have to be checking how they are. I mean, it's terrible because you're living with anxiety that something is going to happen all the time. And you're counting the days and you're counting all of this. Well, I can tell people that that is extreme. That is not who you want to be, and that's not where you want to go. But we all know our animals. And by now, Claudia, you can say that you kind of know your kitties. You know exactly how one behaves and what the other could do. And so this and that. It's the same with people. You need to be prepared. You need to know what to expect from the other person. You know what to do. You know your projects. Okay, projects also have something that you know that if you don't do this, this can happen. So overall, my conversation is, if I think about something that is the best example for me to talk about catastrophizing, it's that. It's what happened in the past and what you can do, which is to be prepared. Think about all the possibilities. Think of what you can do. Just be attentive. Do what your heart tells you to do. Follow your instincts, in other words.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you had to go through such an experience. I know that our hearts just break, especially when we have animals as well, because we know that we are responsible for their well-being. And so, yeah, and I think action is fine. We should all learn from our experiences and then take proper precautions going forward, right? And I think that at some point, you just have to understand that what you're doing is enough. And having this constant emotional charge attached to, really watching, in this case, this example, watching your animal and watching what you feed them and taking them to the vet maybe one more time than one time not enough and things like that, you start taking precaution. But what we want to avoid is this constant fretting and this ball at the pit of our stomach that any moment now something can happen. And so I think that one of the things that truly helps with this, what helps me personally, is contextualizing. Not like my dog is going to pass away in the most horrible circumstances.
Yeah, exactly.
Always focusing on that, but seeing on the things that you are doing. My dog is fine. I am doing what I can. He or she is cared for. I am doing all I can to provide a safe and healthy environment. And so constantly looking at it, maybe with a certain kind of detachment and trying to gauge the context so that what you see is not this one terrible image of maybe, seeing the sick animal, but about the things that are being done proactively to prevent that from occurring.
Correct.
If we bring it back maybe to the social anxiety around Christmas, it's also like, I imagine you have a whole bunch of people over for the Christmas dinner, and maybe, some people of those, like, family members, like the mother-in-law or something like that, tend to be hypercritical, which puts a lot of pressure because nobody wants to be nagged and nobody wants to be criticized. And we all know that some people can be very outspoken and mean in the way that they interact. Is to also there again rest easy or easier in your preparation, in the fact that you did things with a good intention, and also accepting the fact that some people are just going to be like that. Yeah, irrespective of what you do, because imagine you put the most nicest house together and you prepare the perfect dinner. People like that are going to nag. They're going to find something. And if there's nothing actually there, they're going to invent something, or like hone in on the smallest of things, because that's just the way that those very poor, pitiable people react and deal with the world. It's kind of the game they play, and it's the way that they see themselves in this power play between you and them, or them and the world, or their position in the family or not, right? And so it has actually absolutely nothing to do with what you do or don't do. It's all about them. It's about them. And so, then you just have to say, okay, well, this, and sorry if I stereotype here, mother-in-laws, this mother-in-law is just that type of person.
Yeah.
And you're grinning, you probably have, some mother-in-law stories to tell, but because we hear quite a few mother-in-law stories from our clients. So, but it's just a way that these people, not mother-in-laws, but people that react and converse and communicate in such a way, that's how they do it. That's how they do it. And if you were to take yourself out of that situation and plop in an avatar, they would still react that way. See?
Correct.
And so I think that one of the big things that helps with anxiety and expectation management, which really is at the core of it, is to leave the responsibility for other people's behavior with them. It's their opinions, it's their behavior, it's the way that they communicate in the world. And most of the time, it has absolutely nothing to do with us. It really doesn't.
I heard somebody not long ago say that expectation is a projection of what you would want yourself to be. And I found it to be very true. My brother's daughter, she was very little, and she said that she wanted to be a baker. In my mind, I thought that she had to be something bigger and better. I thought, you want to sell cupcakes. What about, being this engineer, being this scientist, that you were talking about? No, because her mother is very similar in that area. She does commerce and all this kind of stuff. She thought, I want to be like my mother, which is typical. But then here comes me with my own expectations of who I want to be, of how I think people have to be. And I imposed those expectations on her. And anything she did, I was disappointed. And then my husband said, wait a second, what's wrong with you? This is a kid. Why are you putting something that you want for yourself onto her? Which is when I learned, don't project your expectations onto anybody else. You have to take yourself out of it and just be happy for the person. This is not about you. This is about what they want. Because let's remember, if you're constantly putting yourself in a position of vulnerability, that's where we are. That's where you feel that people are going to see who you are. And so you start judging others. And so you start creating things that are not true. This thing that Claudia just said is part of saying, you know what? I'm pretty sure that my mother-in-law is going to criticize this plate. She's not going to like it. You're already putting yourself out there for failure. You don't even know if the woman is even looking at the plate.
And
just to put it in simple words,
yeah,
right?
and even if she criticizes the plate, it's your freaking plate, right?
Exactly.
Let her have her opinion, and you enjoy your own plate, and just the way that she can have her gold-rimmed and golden crusted china, you can have your colorful IKEA wear for all I care, right?
Exactly.
So it's about expectation, and expectations are also about judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to stress again that there's two types. There's the ones that are kind of floating around out there, that are emanating from other people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Other people have these expectations of how things should be, on what job you should be doing, like
Mm-hmm.
not being a baker and so on. And it's their expectations, And then there's your expectations that you put on yourself.
Correct.
And in the whole sphere of intensity of expectations, it's ultimately your own that make the anxiety happen or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Your expectation that it is your job to please your mother-in-law, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
is what makes any criticism of your mother-in-law powerful. Okay.
Yeah.
Like there's a really wonderful quote by Marshall Rosenberg, the father of nonviolent communication, and he says, "Others may very well push your buttons, but they didn't install them." Okay, you installed the buttons that you allow others to press. Because let me give you an example. How often have you been in a situation where somebody criticized something, but it left you absolutely cold? It did not trigger anything at all. It was just, okay, so what? Yeah. If somebody says, "I like red cars," and it's just a statement, or "I hate red cars," God knows, yeah, it's just an opinion like any other.
Mm-hmm.
But that is just their thing, and you're like, okay, this person hates red cars. You don't know why, but okay, they can do it. But if you, for instance, had in your head this idea that your next car that you purchase absolutely needs to be a red car because that type of car needs to be red, all of a sudden you can take this very general statement of "I hate red cars" as something that is directed to you personally. Yeah. So, and you might see it or feel it as a criticism, and then on top of that, you might get into an argument about the validity or emotional impact of the redness of a car, right? So, sorry. And so there's a lot happening in terms of our own expectations, our own. And whenever we are in a situation where we have an emotional flare-up or an anxiety flare-up, or we find ourselves in a state of catastrophizing and building things up and up and up in our brain, sometimes it's very nice to take a step back, as we often do. Take a step back and ask yourself, what's really going on here? What are my assumptions and what are my expectations? And you are going to see that, very often it's your own expectations that are out of proportion.
Right.
And so it's truly an inner game, because even the outside, sorry, I have no
Take
air.
your time. Why don't you take it?
Yeah, even the outside expectations, the external ones, it's up to us to accept them or not, and to react to them or not, to let them trigger us or not. Because even there, ultimately it's a decision whether you engage based on a comment or a behavior or something like
Correct.
that or not.
Correct. So let me let you rest a little and let me step in here, because I was thinking about something I had said before to our viewers. For those of you that have not seen one of the episodes, I mentioned that one of the reasons why we care so much about what people say is because we have not made our list of the 3 to 5 most important people whose opinion gives us, let's say, value, that it improves you, that you respect the person, and that you will listen to that person because they're looking after your betterment. So one of the best things that I can tell people always is take a look at the people that are around you and select 3 to 5 people whose opinions you value, that have all of these things, all of these good things. And those are the only people who you will listen to. Not that you have to do what they're telling you, but you're going to listen to them, evaluate what they tell you, and take it from there. Because everybody, there's a reason why there's social media. There's a reason why we have all of these things where people fight over things that it's like somebody calling, excuse me, but the only thing I can think of is like, an offense, and somebody says that it's your mother, and you're like, and you go crazy and you want to fight the person. And I remember my dad telling me once, well, is it true that your mother is this and this? I said, no. Then why are you fighting for? Just let the people talk. Opinions, ideas, comments are just words. And they should just slip through you, because that's what people do. We all have something to say nowadays. We all have something to add. And it's going to be that way, apparently. And it's not going to stop. Okay. So I learned that like they say, if you don't have anything nice to say, keep it to yourself. And I truly, really have embodied that, where sometimes I see a comment on LinkedIn and I'm like, ooh, yeah, I'm not going to intervene on this one. I don't have nothing to say. So I just let it go. The truth is, we value so much what the external environment says, because it's what makes us part of the society. It's what makes us fit in. But remember, you're not here to fit in. You're here to belong. That's something that I would love for people to start realizing. You're here to belong. You're here to do your best, or the better best that you can, and move on and do what you were meant to be, instead of achieving what other people want you to be. I just cannot believe how happy I am doing all of these things that I always wanted to do. It makes me so happy, so fulfilled. And that's what I would love for people to feel now more a days, to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to start doing what I want, because this is what makes me. Like right now, Claudia, like we said, the holiday season. How many people, sadly, we lose to tragedy because they're not doing what they want. They're not speaking up to be who they are. They're hiding. They're keeping secrets. They're having a second life because they're fulfilling their parents' expectations, and on the side, they're doing what they really want to do, So, and this is because we are so worried about what people are going to say, what society has to say. Now, let me step back just to give you a couple of more minutes to catch your breath. I want to talk about social anxiety. I struggle with social anxiety, but I don't think I'm the only one. For me, social anxiety is thinking that somebody invited me, and at the moment, it sounded great. I said, yes, I want to do this. Yes, I'm going to go out. But the day before, I'm already saying, how can I get out of it? What can I say? What can I do? And like 6 hours before I go out, I'm already like this, like, oh my God. And I start thinking I have to get dressed. I have to, put on my makeup and look good. And it's terrible because you're just thinking about all the things that could go wrong. And you're thinking, aren't they supposed to be my friends? Right? If you're going out with friends, what are you afraid of? And like Claudia said, you have to step back and think what's really going on here. Why are you so anxious? And I realized that everything was all in my head. I was just thinking that my friends would probably not like my makeup. They would probably not like my hair, or they're going to criticize against something. And I'm like I said since the beginning, people are going to criticize regardless. And besides, friends do that. Friends do that. But there's a difference between a certain criticism and putting a person down, right? We all know that. But in this case, I realized that it was just me imagining what could be. And there's a study that says 98.5% of the times of the things that you think never happen. So, and I'm not lying, you can look it up, people. It's really true because our minds play games with us, and we just want to be so perfect. We want a society to accept us that we're just thinking about all the bad things, all the wrong things. So please, yes, like Claudia said, step back and say, what's really going on here? What am I thinking? And second of all, if they're really your friends, they're not going to do anything of the things that you're thinking of. And 3, if they are, then it's better just to stay without them.
Yeah, I mean, stuff is going to happen. You're not going to be in control as soon as you go out into the world. Stuff is going to happen. It's ultimately up to you, though, how much power you are going to give those other people to use our earlier analogy, push our buttons, and whether or not you're going to just let it slide off. Teflon people, not Velcro. Teflon.
Yes.
Because it's really true. Does putting yourself into social gatherings and things like that, it can be intimidating, and we often called also in our professional life to attend gatherings with people, or to put ourselves out there that are uncomfortable. By the very nature that we put ourselves out there, that we are literally being put on the spot, and maybe even putting ourselves out here to be criticized. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you put yourself on, you give a talk, you go to a networking meeting, you give a presentation, you go to workshops and stuff like that. It's where potentially your professional persona, more so maybe than your private personality and things like that, are put out there. And it is uncomfortable. It is a daunting thing. So again, I think that success meets preparation. It's always good to be there. But on the other hand, recognizing that our brain is going to jump to the worst case scenario when you're ruminating, being just aware of that, it ties into the whole concept of the bias of negativity, and catastrophizing kind of goes into the same direction. It's when your brain tries to come up with possible outcomes and these what-if scenarios, it's going to very naturally jump to the what you call it, the worst case scenario. And that what causes this catastrophizing, unless you can tell your brain, yes, that can very well happen, but I realize it's the worst case scenario and it's not very likely. And you put your own brain a little bit in its place and say, yeah, okay, I accept that, but there's other things that can happen as well. And so that is one end. And, on the other hand, it's when you put yourself out there, it is going to be uncomfortable. Just become comfortable with that feeling and do not see it as a sign that you're failing. You're just growing, you're exploring options, you're just stretching yourself. It's not anxiety. It's not your body telling you that you're doing something wrong, because discomfort is not. Don't confuse legitimate fear and made up anxiety with the discomfort of being in a maybe slightly more challenging situation that requires you to stretch. You shouldn't be afraid of the latter, because otherwise you're always going to be staying in your safe comfort zone rather than trying to push maybe the boundaries of your comfort zone, pushing it out a little bit of this box. So ask yourself, is this the discomfort slightly just because I'm putting myself out there and I'm trying new things and I'm stretching myself, or is this truly a legitimate case where anxiety is even maybe an appropriate response, right? So I think that not all jitteriness is necessarily a sign that something's wrong. So that is important, I think, as well. So your brain is going to have the tendency to catastrophize, and knowing that, you can kind of say, okay. And then the other thing is, as soon as you go out of the thing, a little bit of the sense of exposure is probably part of it. It's probably part of it. It's just accepting it for that.
So discomfort is something you can actually control in a way, right? You have a little bit more of control of. And and expectation is something you have zero control over, because expectations is just that. It's an idea. So you can't control.
I think that actually expectations are imminently controllable. That's my whole point.
No. I'm talking about the expectations of other people. Your expectation towards yourself, yes, you are right. You have control over it, and you have to think and process it and all that kind of stuff. But what other people think of you, out of your control.
You have control over how much credence you give it and how much you allow them to affect you. Right? If you're just like, okay, talk to the hand, talk to the it's okay. You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to listen to it, and just leave it at that, right?
Correct.
And so yes, you can't change them. You don't have control over what they think, but you have control over how you respond and how do you react to their imposition of their expectation. You can just say, okay, so what, you expect me to do that, but no game here. And you're entitled to that as well. Yeah.
That is correct. So what else is there? I think is there anything else that you can add to it, Claudia?
I would maybe just like to point out that there's a lot of anxiety that can happen after the fact. I should have done this. I should have created that. I shouldn't have said this. People, if it's in the past, it's in the past. And, there's no need for us now to catastrophize over it, to fret over it, to keep, upping our level of anxiety about something that is already water under the bridge. So I think that is also an important aspect that, just let it go. It's all done. If somebody talks about it or says something or reacts about it or there's repercussions later, deal with it when it comes. It's not changeable. So don't make a bigger deal out of things than they really are. So even after the fact, I think it comes down to our own expectations and just the acceptance of past fact. Yeah.
That's correct. I think for me, if I wanted to say the last thing or some last thing from my side, what I've learned is that most of the times I apologize and owning what you've done incorrectly, if there's anything that you've done incorrectly, is sufficient. Trying to explain, trying to, give or find a reason, it just sounds like, like nothing. So for me, if there's anything that needs to be done, it most probably just needs to be done. Just do it or apologize. That's it. There's only two things to it, and owning it, of course. Anything else is probably, it's probably just expectation of other people. And you have to also understand the difference between truly doing a wrong action that has repercussions versus somebody just being disappointed because they didn't get what they expected or you didn't do what they were expecting. That's totally different, right?
Yeah, because what you just said is true, like just after the fact, profusely explaining and things like that. But it's also when somebody expects something from you, no is a sufficient answer. Also there, you do not need to explain and whatever. Sometimes saying no or yes, no is enough. There's not necessarily the need to always, be polite about it. Yeah, like be polite about it, but there's no need to put yourself down, put the other person down, make a whole drama out of it. Just say, no, I'm sorry, I can't, or no, it's just enough. Okay. And that also, I think, is important that, because very often there's another saying that says, you deserve what you tolerate. You deserve what you tolerate. So let's maybe make a little bit of a resolution not to tolerate as many unreasonable expectations often that are being put on us from other people or our surroundings or ourselves. Let's not tolerate every spurious idea that pops into our heads to become this thing that we force ourselves to act upon.
Boundaries, in other words.
Sleep over it, take a step back, and respond instead of reacting.
Exactly. Expectations can be terrible because if you ignore them, if you choose to ignore them just to appease the person or to keep the peace, it's not going to take you anywhere because basically you're just telling the person you can do it again.
Yeah.
So always think about that, like Claudia says, take your time to think about what just happened. And even if you feel that what you're about to tell the person feels a little bit too harsh, most probably you still have to say it and do it. But like Claudia says, there's ways. And I wish in many things that I've done in my life, people would have told me that it's okay to set boundaries, that expectations are crossing your borders. They're crossing over to your side, and they're telling you basically what they want you to do is where you need to, you need to draw the line and say, this is what I've decided to do, but thank you for your opinion. And that's it.
And that's it. Let's be a little bit more self-determined. And, it's okay to live your own life and be a little bit more free from accepting criticism and expectations put upon you by others. Yeah,
exactly. Expectations can really, really cause a person to always think that things have to go their way. And so that's why it's very necessary for you to think, what is that you're truly doing? Is it realistic? Is it just an expectation? Or is it because somebody's expecting you to do that? And that's where you have to make your choices.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, Sandra, I think that was quite interesting today. I think I need to call it quits. I'm absolutely exhausted. I cannot get any air. So we will see each other again, everybody, next week for our weekly broadcast again at 6 p.m. Central European Time. And it's going to be the new year. So I wish you all a fantastic, happy, safe, healthy, and prosperous 23. And, if you like this content, why don't you take that? I cannot.
Yeah, that's fine. Everybody, thank you very much for watching. Remember, this is FreudenFreude. We have our YouTube video. We have a Facebook page, and we would very love to hear your opinions. And if you have any topic that you would like us to cover or want to be coached, please let us know, and we will more than happy have you in the show, and we will be very ready always to hear what you have to say and try to fit it in so that, we have people coming in. Now, this is a series. I want people to know that what we have been doing is a connection from what we started, objectives and goals. And it starts like that. We're kind of breaking it down so that y'all can see how from one little thing, it can take you to all of these things, to setting your goals and your objectives, because, well, it's going to be the new year. So please, everybody, I wish you all a healthy and happy 2023. For all other religions and all other countries, such as in the Middle East, it's not, but we still wish you a happy new year. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Claudia. I will see you next week. And
we'll see you next week. And just a little thing, it's a LinkedIn page, not a Facebook page. But I will, yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you so much. And, have a good happy new year.
Yes.
Okay, see
bye,
ya.
Claudia. Bye, everybody.